Hey folks, I hope that you guys are doing pretty well. So today is Tuesday, the 28th of January 2025, and in today's video I'm going to be deciphering something completely different from the book of Psalms. I still have a lot to decipher, folks, in the book of Psalms. There are so many prophecies that, I still have a lot of work ahead of me, but I wanted to do something different from this video, something interesting, okay? So that I can give myself a little break from the Book of Psalms and also decipher other different prophecies for you, just to keep it all interesting. Okay, in this video is about the foreshadow or the true foreshadow prophecies regarding the 40 days in which Jesus spent in the wilderness, being tempted by the devil, and also the 40 days in which God gave to Jonah that prophecy in chapter 3, verse 4, that Nineveh, or the citizens of Nineveh rather, had 40 days to repent, otherwise the city was going to be overthrown. Okay, so that was actually a foreshadow of those 40 days. Okay, and I will talk about more about this in a moment. And the other foreshadow is actually the 3 days in which Jonah spent 3 days in the belly of a fish. Most Bible scholars think that it was a whale, and how that relates to how Jesus resurrected after 3 days. Okay, and so there are foreshadows and parallels between Jesus and Jonah. And so this is the theme of this video today. Okay, now the parallels of Jesus when he was tempted in the wilderness for 40 days by the devil, and the prophecy which he gave to Jonah that Nineveh had 40 days to repent, otherwise it was going to be overthrown. So can you see how the 40 days are actually a parallel, and has Jesus and Jonah are working in a parallel here, foreshadowing future prophecies, okay, with the 40 days that Jesus was going to be spending in the wilderness, being tempted by the devil. And here also Jonah prophesied that the citizens of Nineveh have 40 days to repent, otherwise the city was going to be overthrown. And as you can see, I got an arrow here, indicating, these foreshadowing prophecies, if you like. And this is actually very important because, in as much as Jesus was requesting the citizens of Nineveh to repent and that they have 40 days to do it, okay, because the citizens of Nineveh at that time, they were under the influence of a somewhat of principality, if you like, okay, because everyone at that time was evil and they were full of violence, according to Jonah 3:8, okay. And so Jesus didn't want to be a hypocrite himself. I mean, if Jesus was going to tell Jonah, hey, go and prophesy to the citizens of Nineveh that they have 40 days to repent, otherwise they were going to be overthrown, then Jesus in the future was foreshadowing this. Okay, he was foreshadowing this in that in the future Jesus was also going to do this as well, because Jesus didn't want to be, a hypocrite. So let me explain all this more, okay? Now, let me go through the notes then, okay? So the parallel of Jesus when he was tempted in the wilderness for 40 days by the devil, and the prophecy which he gave to Jonah that Nineveh had 40 days to repent, otherwise it was going to be overthrown. These prophecies are parallel in Luke 4:2 and also in Jonah chapter 3 verse 4. So let me quickly take you to Luke 4:2, okay? So in Luke, okay, chapter 4 verse 2, we read, being 40 days tempted of the devil. This is Jesus, of course, okay? He spent 40 days tempted by the devil, and in those days he did eat nothing, okay? He ate nothing. And when they were ended after the 40 days, he afterward hungered, okay? Now, in the book of Jonah, then, okay, in Jonah 3:4, okay, it reads, and Jonah began to enter into the city a day's journey. And he cried and said, Yet 40 days, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. So do you see the parallels how Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness being tempted by the devil, but he was also going to allow Nineveh 40 days as well to be tempted by the devil as well. Okay, they have 40 days. Now, why is this? Because in Nineveh, the citizens of Nineveh, okay, all of them were evil and they were doing violence, okay, because look what it says, but let men and beasts be covered with sackcloth and cry mightily unto God. Yeah, let them turn everyone, okay, everyone was doing evil from his evil way and from the violence that is in their hands. Okay, so everyone was evil. Okay, in those days in Nineveh, and they were full of violence. Okay, so basically, then, okay, so we can see the relationship here. The foreshadowing how Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness. And he also asked John to prophesy to the citizens of Nineveh that they have 40 days to repent, otherwise the city was going to be overthrown. So, can you see the arrow here, the foreshadowing of what was Jesus allowing Jonah to prophesy he was actually going to do himself in the future? And why is this? Why did God allow Jonah to prophesy that the citizens of Nineveh have 40 days, okay, uh, to repent or their evil, okay, in other words, that they had actually 40 days to be tempted by the devil themselves because they were all evil. I just told you in Jonah 3:8, okay, I just told you in Jonah 3:8 that they were all evil and they were full of violence, and so there was a principality back then, in the days of Jonah, in that the citizens of Nineveh were under the influence of the devil, okay, because they were all evil and they were full of violence. And so they have 40 days to be tempted by the devil, okay? They have 40 days to be tempted by the devil, and if they didn't repent, they were going to be overthrown. So we can see here, the two parallels, okay, of Jesus and Jonah. Now, why is it the 40 days were given? Okay, why did Jesus was tempted by the devil for 40 days, and why did Jesus prophesy to Jonah that the citizens of Nineveh have 40 days to repent, otherwise they were going to be overthrown? Why is this? This 40 is actually very important. It was actually a foreshadowing to the future. Okay, now let me tell you why in my notes here. There was an evil principality in Nineveh at that time, as everyone was evil and full of violence. That's right, everyone. I just showed you Jonah 3:8, okay? And so, inasmuch as God allowed the citizens of Nineveh to be tempted by the devil for 40 days to repent, him also, Jesus, in the future to come, will allow the devil to tempt him for 40 days. It was like a foreshadow, okay? So these two prophecies here that came to pass was a foreshadowing, if you like, okay, to prove, okay, to mankind that whatever God asks us to do for Him, He can also fulfill that Himself, and God did in Luke 4:2. This was to prove that, God didn't want to look a hypocrite in the eyes of men, okay. That's why there is a reason for this 40 days. That's why God allowed himself to be tempted by the devil for 40 days, inasmuch as God was going to allow 40 days for the citizens of Nineveh to be tempted by the devil for 40 days themselves, okay? And they did repent, okay? And God changed his mind and didn't perform the evil that he was going to do. But Jesus, inasmuch as he gave the citizens of Nineveh for 40 days, he was not going to be any, hypocrite himself, because in the future, this was going to be a foreshadowing that Jesus actually allowed the devil to tempt him for 40 days to prove that he wasn't being a hypocrite to the citizens of Nineveh, that whatever he was asking the citizens of Nineveh to do, in other words, I have 40 days to be tempted by the devil, that he was going to do that himself in the future to prove that he was no hypocrite, okay? No hypocrisy, okay? So if the citizens of Nineveh had 40 days to be tempted by the devil, so will God, Jesus, do the same on an equal basis in the future. And this prophecy that God gave to Jonah in 3:4, in that the citizens of Nineveh have 40 days to repent, otherwise the city was going to be overthrown, okay? This was actually going to be a foreshadow prophecy in the future, in as much as it was going to be a foreshadow in the future on an equal basis, or the same on an equal basis, okay? Now, I want to talk about the 3 days, because we also know that Jonah spent 3 days in the belly of a fish, most likely a whale, according to Matthew chapter 12, verse 40, and also Jonah 1:17. So here in Jonah chapter 1:17, the Lord had prepared a great fish to swallow up Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Okay. Now this was also this prophecy here was also a foreshadow in the future. Okay, in that Jesus was going to resurrect on the 3rd day according to the scriptures. Okay, so that number is also important. Okay, so yeah, Jonah spent 3 days in the belly of a fish, most likely a whale, according to Jonah 1:17 and Matthew 12:40, and this was going to be a foreshadow in that Jesus was going to resurrect after 3 days, according to Matthew 12:39. Okay, where Jesus prophesies an evil and adulterous generation. In other words, he was saying this to the Pharisees and to the Sadducees of the time, seek after a sign, and there shall no sign be given to it but the sign of the prophet Jonah. Okay, so then in Matthew here 12:39, Jesus was telling the Pharisees and the Sadducees of the time, if you like, that he was going to resurrect after his death at the cross in Calvary, after 3 days, So in as much as these 40 days and 3 days, uh, they were actually foreshadows, okay, or true foreshadows of prophecies that Jesus will fulfill, okay, and Jonah did himself also fulfill. He prophesied to the citizens of Nineveh that they have 40 days to repent, and Jonah also spent 3 days in the belly of a fish. On Jesus' first advent, he was tempted 40 days by the devil in the wilderness, and also he resurrected after 3 days. So Jesus and Jonah then, if you like, Jonah was actually foreshadowing what Jesus was going to do in the future. So these are the two foreshadows, prophecies, the 40 days and the 3 days, respectively. And, and, they form parallels, if you like, what both Jesus and Jonah went through in the days of their prophesying, these 40 days and 3 days or parallels prophecies, if you like. They were, what Jonah did was actually foreshadowing what Jesus was going to do in the future. So do you see the relevance of the 40 days and also the 3 days, like I explained here on my notes? So yeah, this is all I wanted to do. Something different, folks. I just wanted to point out why these 40 days were very important. In other words, the 40 days that Jesus got Jonah to prophesy to the citizens of Nineveh that they needed to repent. They have 40 days to be tempted by the devil. Okay, and Jesus in the future would be tempted by the devil. Uh, because Jesus didn't want to be a hypocrite either. If Jesus gave 40 days to the citizens of Nineveh to repent by the devil, then Jesus didn't want to be a hypocrite either. He was going to fulfill that, in a future prophecy, like he did, according to Luke 4:2. And also, just to finish up then, uh, Jonah spent 3 days in the belly of a fish to foreshadow what Jesus will prophesy in the future to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, in that, according to Matthew 12:39, in that an evil and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign, and there shall no sign be given to it but the sign of the prophet Jonah, as he's saying that, Jesus, in the future, was prophesying to the Pharisees and the Sadducees that he was going to die, of course, but that he was going to rise up again after 3 days, just like the prophet Jonah prophesied that he spent, 3 days in the belly of a fish. Okay, alright, folks, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you all later. I'm just gonna give you a bit of a scan of my notes here, so you can read them for yourself later on. That's it. Thanks for watching, folks, and I'll talk to you all later.